and hopefully you can hear me at this point. I would like confirmation as soon as possible. Apparently my mic had disabled for some reason, but what Albert and I were getting to, because this isn't a super competitive match, to be honest, is that we want to talk a little bit about the Magma Cup mythology. You like that alliteration?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
Sure.
so we were talking about Galaglass, whether they had met expectations or not. The one thing I want to talk about primarily, and I think this is the main... Yeah, Boof is like Agent Smith. He just creates multiple versions of himself. You're actually seeing 4 versus 4 right now. But I do want to talk about Terces, because
Okay.
Terces was more of a force last season, and the reason is that Yin Shukinja, is apparently really, really difficult to kill. That hasn't really been the case. Yin Crusader is not the ideal setup for not their team in particular. Now, the question going into Season 7, because Galaglass has had a difficult time, I think they're going to make semifinals, but they're going to have to change something up, I think, in order to be successful against KCS. But that team becomes exponentially more scary when Terces becomes Yin Paladin, if that becomes the narrative.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because you're looking at a Shukinja who can lay on hands, and you're looking at people like Ferg that you can lay. That's scary. That's so scary. We were talking about whether synergy was going to be an issue for them, because so far, those guys have only played a couple of perfect games, and that was against Hydra last season. Every other time that they've played, there's been entanglement to some extent. There's been a number of mistakes in succession.
I think that's on them to fix the mistakes that they were making, though.
Yeah, I think that's true too. Now, let's just quickly go
But
through...
they also have Sabian, so you can't eliminate him either. They have a very wide variety of people.
No, but I think you can use Semiad in like niche plays, but I think Ferg, Visath, Sabian, and Terces as Yin Paladin would be a scary combination to field.
And I guess you would use Aerok against certain matchups, maybe.
Yeah, and Aerok can be in there too as well. It just depends. I mean, they can field a lot of stuff at that point. The other teams I want to talk about are... We'll go briefly over the Balfour Billy Goats, because I do want to say that they are a prime example of a team that didn't have a competitive niche as far as this Magma was concerned, but their players still showed up. And I think that's a very interesting test kitchen, because Lewis formed a team, even though he's on Brute Squad, and somehow those guys have fielded a 4-man roster every night that they've played. So
It's a shame you don't get to see Quicksilver and Billy Goats play, huh?
Yeah, that's true. That would be maybe a competitive match. Boof would have a lot to chew on. So the other narratives of this Magma are the Gant team, right? Which we still haven't seen their full potential yet. They've looked a little green just because a couple of those players don't have ACFL experience. That's apparent. But on paper, even an all-Minotaur team with Gore across the board and Duxton can be scary in the right hands, right?
I mean, they have an upcoming match of KCS, so we'll see how that happens.
Well, that's the final boss. That is the final boss of ACFL
I'm scared
at
for
this
Gant
point.
because if their fire skins don't proc against Grendel, they're going to take a lot of damage.
Yeah, they will. Duxton is always scary, though. I mean, if he has a team around him, then there's a small fighting chance.
You could see on Stars that they couldn't kill Duxton for like the whole match.
Yeah, there were 4 of them trying to kill him. His team was basically away somewhere, and it just took forever.
And obviously, Invokers has always been the hard counter to the Stars, so that's why it's hard.
And speaking of Bodrum, we do have one more conversation topic. Within the past few days, a spell called Bodrum's Boils has been incorporated into the game. For those of you who don't know, what do you think? Should we actually discuss mechanics or leave it?
I don't think we should discuss mechanics until Magma's over.
Okay. Well, I will say this. The spell has serious implications for the semifinals and finals of Magma Cup, or it did until about 10 minutes ago. We will leave it at that, but it's really one of the most interesting narratives that's happened in Magma so far, just because generally during active competitive seasons, we don't see
mechanical changes.
Yeah. Tony so far has held back from that, so this was a staggering change, and it probably warranted the glance of every single ACFL team participating in Magma.
Maybe because Magma isn't considered like a true long-standing competition like Sea Wars or ACFL is, maybe.
Maybe. It's been so much fun the past 2 weeks, though.
Yeah.
It's been a breath of fresh air, and I think that the player base will assess that. We have 120 people on. Until the past couple of weeks when Magma started, and it's only risen exponentially each night. We capped at about 123 during Brutes Hydra. The player base has kept growing. It's kept growing and growing. So I'm curious to know if we break any records on semifinals and finals.
Okay, we might as well preview semifinals right now since the match is over. Stars took it 3-0.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Semifinal 1 should be Hydra versus Stars, right?
Yes, almost certainly.
And that's on Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that semifinals locked in. I don't think that there's any changing that.
How do you feel about that match going in?
I don't know how to feel. I'm like a 15-year-old girl at the quinceañera at this point. So Bodrum's Boils was obviously scary, knowing the implications of what that means for Stars in particular. I don't know if this last change is withstanding, but that makes it more difficult to cast. That said, it's scary no matter what it is. A Necromancer can land that spell in theory on players, and then it's debilitating. So I don't really know. I think mechanically, Rinthos is still a difficult matchup for Stars, because even if Rinthos is and he has AMS going, then that's still hard for them to break through. So I think that both teams will still have to play extraordinarily well to clinch the semifinals, regardless of any meta changes.
And then the second match will undoubtedly be KCS versus GG, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that matchup?
Well, we discussed that a few minutes ago, which is that I think GG, on paper, has a fighting chance.
Might be a better team.
Yeah,
yes.
They have a fighting chance against KCS. They do. The players are all roided up. I say that in the best, most healthy possible way. And individually, all of those players fall into the legend line of DSL. Terces and Ferg have been playing this game since the late 90s, I believe. And they've both been hugely successful for their clans, which was Malice and I believe Armada and then Justice and Bloodlust. So on paper, this should be an extraordinary team, but they're not following through. So it'll be... Both these semifinals are going to be interesting fights because does GG deliver on the mechanics that they have, and
they haven't proven that they've been having to step over that big hurdle to beat the top two teams yet. We'll just have to see.
They haven't, and if I had to call it, I would call it a victory. And
KCS is like the hardest hitting team, and Gallowglass doesn't really have that much healing, to be honest.
Mm-hmm, that's true. Well, they
are hard hitting.
They have Terces and they have Sabian.
And Ferg has I don't really consider that a true healer, though. That's just like healing yourself.
That's true. And Scalds aren't mana efficient as far as healing. They have Song of Healing, but that's pretty debilitating to the mana pool, no matter how much you have. So, beyond that, is there anything else important that we should discuss before we close it out? Because we want to carry everything to what's happened so far. I don't think we've seen any enormous upsets.
No, every match has been 3-0, which is really surprising.
Yeah. Song of Healing is mana efficient in the way
that
it
for a group, not one person.
In the way that it heals 4 people, but you can't use it that much. So you have to call corners, you have to heal immediately, and then you have to move it forward. But Scalds run really quickly. So over a long match, when you're looking at a tri-healing comp, you want a comp that can just keep healing, call corner, keep healing, like Gallowglass Season 3 or Brute
That was
Squad.
A 4 healing comp, not a try.
Yeah.
Because we had Priest, Druid, Jongler, Scald.
Yeah, that was sick. That was the first time that had been demonstrated to be so effective.
Yep.
So...
But KCS has tri-healing, so that's... They have a crap ton of damage, too, so it's really rough against Gallowglass.
Indeed. So, Ferg and Vasath, if fielded, are going to have to do some serious choke work.
The other issue is if they somehow choke Grendel, they can't actually hit him because they're all in the same clan.
That's true also. Yeah, I think choke comps, it was so effective with KCS Season 1. And since then, the meta has moved away from that. It just doesn't matter anymore because all of the teams can heal sleeper. And everybody wakes up on the tick. So you're not able to control as much.
Yeah.
So I do want to introduce one more thing, which is I want to
Okay.
ask. I'm going to give 5 eggs to anybody who can ask an ACFL or answer an ACFL question. So can you think of anything good? Because I just decided to do this 5 minutes ago. Do you have a good ACFL question to ask? Let's
No.
think. Let's think on this.
An
Okay, I
actual
have one.
ACFL
All right, I have
question?
one. Yeah, an actual ACFL question, but I'll ask the first one for this cast. So this is for 5X, folks, and it's not always going to be that because I'm poor. But who is the mole assassin who contributed by far overwhelmingly the most damage in season 1? He played for the Arcane Stars. Do you know the answer, Albert?
Of course I know the answer.
Who is the assassin who is dropping 13k bombs every single match of season 1? I mean, that guy was an inspiration for me. Nurgle does
Nurgle
get
got
the
it with
answer.
13.
That guy was an inspiration. I know who his player is now, and I was surprised because I didn't know that he could play assassins that well. Okay.
So Nurgle gets 5 eggs.
Nurgle does get 5 eggs. They should already be in his inventory.
Wow, that's some magic you got to pull off there. Just
Rekla
put it
has
in the
lived for a
inventory.
long time, and he's learned how to do things that not every character knows. You
Okay.
can just make things appear in your hands. But we will leave it at that, folks. We did our best to carry the narrative so far for ACFL, for Magma Cup. I hope you guys are as excited about semifinals and finals as I am. I think it's safe to say, just like season 6, this has been the most competitive Magma Cup so far. There have only been 2, but it's been the most competitive.
There's only been 2, yes.
Okay. Thanks for casting with me, Albert.
Are you casting? Tomorrow is Gigi and get Billy Goats?
I'll cast with you.
Okay. Well, we'll see who's going to cast. And then I guess Grush is going to have to cast on Saturday. Well, I can cast Saturday. I guess you could cast Sunday, right? So
I can, yeah.
because
but
we're not both playing the same day.
Feel better log in and contribute. He fell off the face of the earth. I'm still mad at him about that because we had Sagash, I believe, was the player who had to step up and cast finals for us.
Yeah.
So
because we were fighting, so we couldn't cast. And he was
correct.
the only one that stepped up and did it.
So Philip, I would like you to get your life in order, and you can leave your job if necessary, but make sure that you get those casts recorded.
But he only has to leave his job for like a week, like 5 days.
Yeah, just call in sick, you big baby. All right, good night, folks.
Thanks for listening, guys. See you tomorrow.